Today, Great.com talks with Eugenia O, who is President and Chief Executive Officer at the National I Have a Dream Foundation. If you haven't heard of them, they are a non-profit organisation whose mission is to empower children to succeed in schools, college, and their careers. If you are new here, please press subscribe on YouTube or in your podcast app, because today we learn the importance of ensuring all children have the opportunity to pursue higher education. Hello, Eugenia, and welcome to our podcast.
Hi, Ryan. Thanks so much for having me today.
Thank you for being here. And I really do look forward to this conversation because I personally believe it's so important to make sure we say empower and guide those young individuals, especially children. So to start with, Eugenia, for me and anybody new here, what is the I Have a Dream Foundation and what do you do?
Sure. So the I Have a Dream Foundation is a movement to empower all young people to achieve their dreams through education and through mentorship. And the way that our program works is we provide the young people that we serve, and we do call them dreamers, with a long-term program over 13 consistent years with a full-time paid professional who is there to guide them from first grade to first job. And so we have programs that we work with our dreamers after school, on the weekends, and over the summers from first grade through first job. And, we really believe that every child has potential and that it's our job as the adults in their lives to help them reach that potential. And we work with, and, we acknowledge there's so many incredible programs out there that are trying to help youth who live in really under-resourced communities. But despite a lot of these programs existing in our communities, so many kids are still not getting what they need to achieve their full potential. They're kind of falling through the cracks. And so we work with those kids who have the highest needs and have also the greatest lack of resources, and we make sure that they don't fall through the cracks.
Wow, so that's amazing. I don't even know another word to put it. I'd say it's amazing because you mentioned there, Eugenia, you followed them through for a 13-year process. That's such a long time, and it's nice to have that, support. So is that on a one-on-one basis with the support there?
Yep. So to get a little bit, more into the details. So we've been in existence for 40 years. So we were founded in 1981, and we're currently in 9 different states, serving almost 4,000 young people, anywhere from, early elementary through their first job. And, it's the consistency of the program director. We call our program staff program directors, who are working with the same young people day in and day out for those 13 plus years. That really makes the difference in our program. So our program directors, they become, almost, additional family members, if you would think about it that way. Of course, because we're working with our dreamers from such a young age, they get to know family members, and they really build the trust with the family, with the dreamer over so many years, through thick and thin, through many ups and downs. And they often become kind of that first call that you make when you have any sort of challenges, crisis, trouble, just an extended trusted person to help you navigate all the things that life throws at you, navigate systems like school, like other social welfare systems that you might participate in. So, over time, it's not just mentorship. It's, more than just mentorship. It's almost like this added family member that you have. And, that's really what we like to call our secret. It's this person, this program director that is going to be your person, your primary person for so many years. That makes all of the difference. And so, we have a lot of different outcomes that we look at, around academics, around socio-emotional skills, just around leadership and, civic engagement. And what we've really discovered is it all kind of comes back to that program director and their commitment to you as a dreamer that makes a difference.
Wow, thanks again as well for going a little bit deeper into that. So yeah, what really stood out for me is just the time frame with, say, that one individual, say like the dreamer, which I love. The dreamer gets to spend that time with one person rather than, say, a mixture of different, say, mentors, because I feel like it's consistency that's going to work. Because say, for instance, if the dreamers saw a different face every time, they can't really build up that, say, rapport or relationship with that individual. And you mentioned it's almost like a family member. Like they could almost see it as, say, like an uncle, an aunt, or something like that. So yeah, I mean, it's so nice to hear that these individuals are there to show up to help and support the young dreamers. So the question that I'd like to ask you then is, why would you say that this is so important?
So I appreciate that question. I think, and just to be clear, it's not all on the one program director. They have assistants and support staff. We use AmeriCorps service members, and we also partner with a lot of nonprofits who come in, to do different types of educational programming, tutoring, academics, all sorts of mental health services and supports. But it's all kind of coming in through this one program director, and I think one of the reasons why that's so success, that is kind of such a recipe for success is that exactly what you mentioned, it takes a lot of time to build up an authentic relationship based in trust, and there aren't any shortcuts to doing that, right? So you could have one of the highest quality interventions for young people today, a great SAT prep program, let's say, in the US, it's the college admissions exam, and you might offer it free and no cost, right, to certain communities. And your experience is that really the attendance is very poor, right? Because, you can't just go into a community and throw open a door and say, come for these free great lessons, because, we're not sure about the quality, the vetting. Are you going to try to sell me something? Is there, there's just no trust there. But if our program directors who've been working with their dreamers, at this point, by the time they're sophomores or juniors in high school for a solid 10 years, is saying, you should really come to this SAT prep program. It's important. It's high quality. It's worth your time. The dreamers will come. The dreamers will come, right? And it's because, they have that trust with the dreamers and with the families that, if the program director is signing off on it, you have no doubt that it's going to be worth your time. And, I think so often we kind of take that for granted, right? How hard it is to build up trust. In particular, I think when you are navigating and living in a system that is not designed for you and is not designed with your success in mind, right? In fact, you might have every reason, valid reasons to distrust the system. So, I think the fact that, it is a person from, we really try to work with and hire people who are from the communities that we serve, and who are saying, I will be here with you on this journey for 13, 15 years. That makes a big difference. And a lot of times it takes, it takes years to build that trust up with the families and with the dreamers. So, it might be kind of those early elementary to end of elementary years that we're taking, the time to just be consistent, right? Because that's the best way to show trust, to build trust, that consistency. You might not like me today, but you're going to see my face every day for 5 years, and at the end of this, you'll respect me minimally, you'll trust me, and you'll probably like me too.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so nice to hear about that, because like trust is something so important. Like trust can take years to gain, but can be lost in a single second. And I believe like every great relationship is built on a, say, solid foundation of trust. So yeah, it's super important to have the trust there between, say, the mentor and the child, because they won't want to, say, progress and do anything if they don't feel the trust is there. So yeah, it's super important to have that close relationship with trust there. So what I want to go on to is the next question is, since its founding in 1981, what would you say have been some of your greatest challenges and how have you overcome them?
Sure. So, you know, I think there have been a lot of evolutions that we've gone through since 1981. You know, our founder, Mr. Eugene Lang, he made a promise on a whim to pay for the college educations of a group of children from his elementary school alma mater, right? He went to the graduation, and it was a sixth grade graduation. And the principal at the time said, you know, you better make it a good one because it's probably the last one they'll ever have. He was so dismayed to learn that. And he said, you know, I want to remove the financial barrier to college. So I'll pay entirely for your college once you get there. Parents were so excited, right? And I think, you know, the first challenge was almost immediate because he woke up the next day and said, you know, I don't really know what to do to get kids through high school into college, right? Like he was a very successful, incredibly smart, and innovative businessman, but he was smart enough to also recognize this is not my skill set. So he hired a social worker from the East Harlem community where they were. And this social worker, Johnny Rivera, put together the programming, right? The program that he ran for his dreamers after school on the weekends and over the summers for the next 5 years or so. And, you know, he understood, I think, so much the importance of not just the academic piece, but socio-emotional and exposure. You know, he took the dreamers all over the place, including, you know, to college, you know, college and university trips, cultural trips to museums. I think there's a really funny story of their kind of going to the opera and just to open their eyes and, you know, to see what's out there in the world beyond their community, right? And then, you know, our second challenge was kind of once word got out around what Mr. Lang was doing, so many people wanted to replicate what he was doing. And so Mr. Lang started us, the National Foundation, to help replicate and you know, reproduce his success. And so that was a whole different challenge around, okay, we had been in just service delivery mode. And then you kind of have to step back and think about, well, what does a national organization or headquarter really do, right? And it's analogous to a franchise model, right? Where you're trying to replicate the positive outcomes, but you also have to understand the context, right? And the localization that has to happen within each community that you go into. So that was a huge challenge as well, you know, figuring that piece out. And then I think, you know, we started to see some of the dynamics shift around some of the challenges we had with replicating outcomes for our dreamers, because, you know, in the early 2000s, mid 2000s, you know, what we started to see was there had been a lot of organizations working to get first generation college students, low income, you know, students of color into college with this pipeline. But what we found was that once, you know, the students were in school, they were not doing well, right? And so the dropout rates were much, much, much higher, right? And so, you know, that's a combination of academic preparedness, but also cultural and socio-emotional preparedness. Being the first in your family to navigate, you know, this kind of college or university structure is not easy, right? So we have been really kind of working on that piece as well. So what happened at each stage is kind of Mr. Lang started in sixth grade and stopped in 12th grade. We decided to start in third grade and go into the first year of college. Well, now we like to start in first grade if at all possible, and go right through college, right? Or what we like to say, your first job or first career, right? So I think, you know, some of the ways we've responded to the challenge has been to almost double down on what we do and say, like, okay, we need more support, more services, because, you know, there's so much, I think, access and kind of, you know, I hate this term, but soft skills, you know, that kind of learning that happens in a wealthy family, you know, a family that has generations of college graduates, right? That is just kind of passed down almost intrinsically around the dinner table, right? And so, you know, we need to really help fill all of those gaps. And the way that we can do that is just by spending more time with our families. So that has been, you know, a really, really big challenge as well. And then I think just to touch on another big challenge that we're still working through is, you know, unfortunately, the need for services and programs like ours have only increased. I think, you know, with, you know, kind of increase in wealth and income gaps, and, you know, kind of the way that those gaps play out for our young people in public schools, in public housing. And, you know, we want to be able to serve all the young people that need our types of programs. And so there's always going to be a resource constraint around that. And so we've been thinking more about how we can tap into different types of fundraising opportunities and, partner with different types of organizations, non-governmental, governmental. We do have a presence outside of the US in New Zealand. Actually, it's an amazing program in New Zealand. So we are thinking, I think, a little bit bigger and more broadly about how we can get these services to more students who need them. Because, our big ideal would be a world where an I Have a Dream Foundation program doesn't need to exist because kids are just getting what they need by dint of birth from, whatever structure and system they're in. So, we've been thinking about that as well.
Yeah, thank you so much. Like, there's so much detail there. So thank you so much for sharing that with us. So what I really wanted to ask you then, what I just picked up at the end there is, how do you say choose or pick, or how would say a young child or dreamer reach out to you, or what's the way that say a child gets this support?
Sure. So typically, we work with our supporters or funders to identify a community that they're interested in supporting, and then we do a needs assessment. So we will also do kind of a scan of the community to see who might be the best partners. So a few things kind of need to come together. There needs to be enough need, to warrant a program. We need to find a partner, whether it's a school or school district or a public housing partner that is willing to work with us, in very close collaboration to make this happen. And, I think, again, kind of unfortunately, there's way more need than we have there's way more demand than we have supply of our programming. So, it's typically not difficult to identify a partner. Some of the communities that we're in, I'm thinking about Colorado. We have an amazing affiliate in Boulder, Colorado. I think this is probably also true now of an affiliate we have in Idaho, for example. They have almost a competitive RFP process where, when we raise the funding to start with a new cohort of dreamers, we will kind of open up the RFP, and the school districts will bid to have the program come into their school.
Yeah, that sounds brilliant. Like, you mentioned like there has to be enough meat on the bone as well. So yeah, it's super important that you find the right programs to work in the right areas, I guess. So no, it's super important. So what I wanted to ask you then, from something you said there as well, is about the needs of the individuals. Like, what have you found are some of the biggest needs of the individuals that you've helped, and how are you part of the solution?
Sure. So I think in terms of needs, they're very broad, and just kind of in broad brushstrokes, we're working with typically schools that are incredibly under-resourced, and so, academically, there are intense needs, and we try to really focus on that piece in elementary school as that period of time to really try and catch up, and get onto grade level. This has always been true, but I think it's become even more true in the pandemic environment. The mental health needs are also incredibly high, right? We're all learning about, trauma and intergenerational trauma and the way that trauma plays out. And, for our young people, they have an incredibly high kind of experience level with trauma at a very young age, incidences of trauma by the time they're entering kindergarten. And, it's impossible to predict the way that any one individual will respond to that trauma, but we know that you need to take the time to heal from it, right? If you want to kind of be in that position to be able to thrive. So, we do have mental health services available at most of our affiliates through a social worker, licensed clinical social worker, a group of therapists, and again, in the pandemic, that has become even more important, I think, at an even younger ages, younger and younger ages. And then I think something that we have always been really solid and strong in and continue to kind of also emphasize is the socio-emotional learning and life skills. So, what are the character traits? What are the skill sets that you need to be resilient, to have grit, to have that mindset of growth, that mindset of positivity? Mindset is everything, right? So, not just hoping that will happen, in a good way, but, being really intentional about teaching about mindset and the way that you can control that as an individual, right? Is incredibly helpful. We want our dreamers to have confidence, but humility, right? To have strength, but also know when to be gentle, and so it's all of these things that we try to balance. And I think that has been, really a strength of ours, and something that we continue to emphasize for our young people. And I guess the second part of your question was, what have we seen? What was the second part? What have we seen as a challenge for individuals? Can you remind me?
No, yeah, no, that's okay. That's fine. I just like to ask, like, how are you part of the solution for that? But I think you sort of went over it there a
Oh,
bit as well.
yeah.
So
Yeah, I know that's a great question, because I think it is, a little bit, especially here in the US over the past couple of years, we've had just such a reckoning, with the way that race and racial injustice is really, baked into the structure of our systems. And it's been very challenging because, we do work with, 94% Black or Latinx students, 98% students of color. And it's been challenging. I think one of the good things is, as we as an organization have always kind of addressed this and put it at the forefront, because we recognize, who our children are, and, the way that they need to be supported. I think the way that we are really trying to address these larger challenges is that, we know the system needs to shift, you know, but that shift is going to take a long time. It's going to take a long time. And while that change is happening, and it's super important that that change happens, we still have, thousands and millions of young people who are living in the system as it is right now, and we want to see them have the opportunities they deserve to thrive. And so our piece of the work is working with the kids who are in the system now, and we're doing that direct service. And, I think it's incredibly rewarding to see that impact you can have on an individual life. And, the only way you make real change is one life at a time. So that's what we're doing.
yeah, no, I absolutely love that. And it must be so rewarding, like to watch that progress over, say, a potentially 13, 15-year period, watch, say, a young child grow up and become, say, almost a young adult as well. So no, it's so nice to just imagine like what you guys must see and feel from that, say, journey of, say, a young child. So as we sort of wrap this up now, I think you mentioned it earlier, but I'll just go over it again. Could you share with us your vision?
Sure, sure. And just to comment on one thing that you said, since we are 40 years old, what's amazing is that we have seen, our dreamers go on to have children of their own. And then they just are born with this kind of expectation and innate confidence that their kids will also go to college, and have careers. And we've seen that happen. We've had dreamers who have their own kids who graduate from college, and, they're doing all of these social media managers and all kinds of jobs that, that didn't exist, when we first started, but we wouldn't have imagined, for our dreamers. And so that kind of ripple effect, that family intergenerational effect, like we see that now, and it's amazing. It's amazing. So, I think some of the, feedback we might receive is, oh, this program, it's so long term. But our point is, if you do it the right way, you only have to do it once to change the trajectory of that whole family, right? So we might as well just do it the right way and go all in. And so that's what we're all about, And, I would just say, my vision is, a world where every child is able to have what they need to thrive and be successful and unlock their potential right from their birth, And I think that some of what we have been doing at I Have a Dream can really help lead the way in terms of sharing and understanding, the complexity of this problem and of this issue. It's not just the SAT prep. It's not just the academic tutoring. It's not, just a mentor that you have for 2 years. It's not just therapy. It's all of these things that are put together. It's required, to be able to really, catapult this young person into understanding their full potential and realizing it and thriving. And so, I see a world where maybe we can help, with some of the thinking that needs to happen and the designing of the program that needs to happen, and that every child, by dint of birth is given the opportunity to thrive and really, really to have a joyful life. Like that's my ultimate kind of, vision, my little woo-woo vision of, where I think we really talk about our dreamers having meaningful choice to pursue the opportunities that they want. We're not going to tell them what's best for them. Four-year college might be good for some, vocational might be good for another. It's up to them to decide, but we want them to know what the options are, to pursue the options, and then to be able to have these, beautiful, joyful lives where they are able to, stand in their strength and their confidence.
Wow, like that's so fantastic to hear, because I believe I've seen, say, even examples. I've seen some examples before, and I've heard stories where people, for instance, have had that, say, support from, it could even be one individual. Let's say it could be a teacher from school growing up, and that one person just believed in them and supported them, and all it took is those words to come out of that person's mouth is "I believe in you," and it's changed the whole trajectory for that person's life as well. So over the 13-year span, like the compound effect of the support that's there, I feel like could have huge benefits for that individual, but then also the family that's been passed down from family to family to family. So no, thank you so much. So again, just as we wrap up now, I'd like to ask you, say, for anyone that's, say, listened today and that's wants to, say, reach out and help or anything like that, what can somebody do to help, and what action steps can they take to be a part of the solution?
Absolutely. So you can always come to our website, www.ihaveadreamfoundation.org, to learn more about our work, to join our movement, to join our listserv. Specifically, if you want to get involved with I Have a Dream, we are around the country in the United States and in New Zealand, and there are lots of opportunities to become very directly involved with dreamers if that's something that you're interested in doing as a volunteer. And I would also say, if you're thinking more about kind of this big, challenge, structural, systemic challenges and solutions, I think the best thing to do is always to start very, very local. I mean, get involved with your school board, right? Get involved with, the public school system in your local neighborhood. Get involved with, there's all types of services that I think have increased in the COVID pandemic, right? Food insecurity, houselessness, homelessness. These are all challenges that, again, you need to kind of really address at the local level. So, there's a way for you to support the people in your very own neighborhood and community that are struggling. And I think that if we all kind of took a little more responsibility for what's happening to our neighbors, that would help a lot, And then, of course, always come, follow us on social media for I Have a Dream. You can learn more about individual dreamers and their stories. We like to, we've been trying to do a little more storytelling, and I think just learn kind of more about that long-term impact you can have with a long-term investment, and hopefully you'll be inspired.
Eugenia, thank you so much for today. And for you listening, if you've enjoyed this episode, please press subscribe on YouTube or in your podcast app, because that will show the algorithm that this is an important conversation, so more people can learn the benefits of supporting children to succeed in their lives.